learn from Mr. Reid. He is the author of the book that you have, Financial Freedom, Simplified, and I'm telling you, he will simplify it. So hopefully you will hear some tips, some suggestions, and some things that you can do even now, no matter what age you are in life. Some things that you can do now to help prepare you for what's to come in the future, financially. So I'm going to turn it over to him. I'm going to run the PowerPoint, and you're going to do the talking.
Great. Thank you, Emily. Thanks. I don't think I've ever gotten an applause just before I even started speaking before. Thank you for that. Yeah. Well, let's get right into it. I got a question for you. Don't answer the question until I kind of explain in full what I mean here with a showing of hands. In your lifetime, do you think that you will accumulate as much as $2 million? And when I say accumulate, don't start nodding your head no yet. When I say accumulate, I don't mean you inherit the money. I don't mean that you win the lottery. Think kind of the traditional way. You have a job, you earn money, you save a portion of the money that you make, you invest it. So think stocks, bonds, mutual funds, retirement accounts, bank accounts, real estate, etc. Total value of all those things in your lifetime as you accumulate, do you think it will be as much as $2 million? And don't worry about inflation. Just think in terms of today's dollars, to what $2 million is today. So, and there's no right or wrong answer, and don't raise your hand based on what your neighbors are doing. I'm going to come back to this at the end of the talk, is why I wanted to ask this. So I'm just kind of curious of where your heads are on this subject. So how many think, yeah, that's me? Couple? Okay. How many are thinking, nah, probably not? Probably ain't happening. Okay. All right, good. How many of you, until I asked that question, had never thought about accumulating wealth or having $2 million or what I will have in the future? That hadn't really thought about it at all. Okay, good. All right, so what we're going to talk about is wealth accumulation, financial freedom, kind of the what, the why, and the how. So that's the what. And then we'll talk a little bit about why people do it. And then I think what you'll find most interest is, well, how do you do that? Okay? So Ms. Garrison, please. Next one. Yeah. So the main thing I would like to leave with you today is this thought right here. If you don't take anything else away from this, is that wealth accumulation is a choice, and the choice is yours. Now that sounds simple, like, okay, yeah, sure it is. What I mean by that is you will not accumulate wealth. You will not gain financial freedom simply because you graduate from Caldwell Tech, or you go into a four-year school, or even because you get a really good job with a high income. And vice versa, it doesn't mean you can't do it without those things. I've seen, back when I was a financial advisor years ago, I saw plenty of people with very high incomes that were financial train wrecks. Last fall, I spoke at the funeral of one of my best friends from high school's father who passed away. He'd graduated or dropped out of high school in the 9th grade, was a factory worker, became a foreman, the plant manager, etc. He died a multi-millionaire. Why? Because he grew up very poor, and he didn't like it. He didn't like what he had to endure. He didn't want his family and the next generation of his family to endure that. So he made conscious, deliberate decisions of how to handle the money that came his way in his lifetime. That's what gaining financial freedom is about. That's what wealth accumulation is about, is the money that comes your way, of thinking about it in a conscious way of what's really important to you and what goals you're trying to achieve with it. All right? The paper boy story. When I was 8 or 9 years of age, I had a paper route to go up and down Rollins Street in Moberly, Missouri, where I grew up. One day my mom comes in and says, we need to set up a bank account for this money from your little paper route. So, well, why? She said, well, it's not safe. You just got it laying around the room. You could lose it. I thought, well, okay. So how much is the bank going to charge me to look after my money? You know, when she said it's not safe here, I'm thinking, you know, take it to the bank with a vault and armed guards, and, you know, they're going to be looking after my money. So surely they probably charge you for that service. She said, well, they don't charge you anything. They pay you interest on your money. And then she went on to kind of explain the concept of interest and what that meant. And again, I'm 8 or 9 years of age, and a light bulb went off then that stayed on for the rest of my life. And this was huge for me. And that was the knowledge and the concept that money can make money for you, that your money can make money. So I thought, wow, well, if my money can make money, then if I accumulate enough money, maybe one day my money will be making more money for me than I make at my job. And then maybe I can decide whether I want to continue to work, what I want to do, how I do it, where I do it, who I do it with, etc., all those kind of things. So that is a huge concept when you understand that money has earning power just like you do from your employment. But unfortunately, if you don't do something to save some money and make it happen, it won't. And that's why over 50% or more of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Is their view of money is you have a job and you make money so that you can consume things with it. All about kind of right now, not about what money can do for you in the future. Okay? A couple of concepts or thoughts that seem to resonate with a lot of people. Some people think that being rich is having a high income. Income is yesterday. What you retain and invest is your future. So I don't care how much money you make. Mike Tyson, the boxer, is probably the best example. Made millions and millions and millions of dollars and then filed personal bankruptcy because every paycheck he ever got from boxing, he figured out a way to blow it. So the money that you made in the past or what your paycheck was last week doesn't do anything for a future for you other than you're shackled to that job to get the next check if you are blowing through all of your money. So it's what you save or retain, don't spend of your paycheck is kind of the essence of what we're talking about today. So putting that in words, what I was talking about with the paperboy concept, first, you work for money. I mean, all of us get a job so we can get a paycheck. But you transition to where the money works for you as you save a portion of what you make and get that money earning more money for you. And so that's when you start to move in the direction of financial freedom, is that now my money's working for me. Obviously, it's not an A to Z switch or, just on or off. You gradually make progress in that direction, okay? And if anybody has any questions as I go along, just please raise your hand, jump in here. All right, Ms. Garrison. So that's the what we're talking about. So let's talk a little bit about why people accumulate wealth. In a very broad sense, I think there's kind of two reasons that people accumulate wealth, or that, in other words, why people don't spend all of their money today. There's kind of two choices here we could say is that you get a paycheck, I could blow it all, shouldn't say blow it all, I could spend it all, necessities of life, paying the bills, and then what's left over, everybody can figure out ways how to spend the rest of it. Or I can save a portion of it. So we could probably come up with 100. On the next slide, I'm going to show you I came up with 6, but they really kind of come down to 2 basic thoughts. So why would someone say, hey, I've got extra money left over, I'm not going to spend it and enjoy that money today. I'm not going to go out to eat again. I'm not going to buy new stuff with this extra money that I don't need to pay the bills. Why would people choose to invest it rather than spending it? Help me out. Emergency. Perfect. That's number 1 on my list. I call that security. Give me an example, what you're thinking of.
Car breaks down, needs a major repair.
Exactly. What else? Anybody have any other ones?
Your washing machine.
Medical, your washing machine.
You get sick.
You get sick. You lose your job. Man, that's great. That's great. All those are exactly what I'm thinking of. Basically, if life comes at you, things happen.
Another reason why people save money is so they can do fun things like go on trips and stuff that they put in money.
Do fun things, go on trips and stuff. That's kind of number 2. What other things besides that? So we'll call those things that you all mentioned originally there security. There's nothing fun about my car breaking down. So that would be the security so that I'm not stressed out. I'm not getting kicked out of my apartment because I can't afford the rent because I got sick. So then she mentioned going on vacations. So give me some other ideas kind of along that line. Yes?
Saving up for a big purchase, like a down payment on a house or a down payment on a car.
Yes, perfect. Any other ones? Hobbies. Do fun stuff. Maybe I like to go sailing. Maybe I like to go deep sea fishing. Okay, if I spend every paycheck I get, I can't go out and spend $2,000 on something I really want. Anything else? Good. I'll call that freedom. Let's look at the next slide, Ms. Garrison. So number one, the most fundamental reason to not spend all of your paycheck is security, those things you all mentioned. Number two is freedom of choice, whether it be doing fun stuff, whether it be retiring a little bit earlier, whether it be enjoying a hobby that just gives you freedom of lifestyle to choose what you want to do. If you don't have money, a lot of those choices are taken away from you. This number three is really an example of number two, but I wanted to illustrate that first question I had about the $2 million. So one question I get a lot of times from younger people is kind of, well, what's the point of saving a bunch of money and then you just die rich and da-da-da? No, that's not what I'm talking about. Think about it like this. And there's nothing magic about $2 million. It could be $500,000, it could be $5 million, it could be whatever number you want to pick. But I picked this out because in today's world, I think the $2 million works pretty well. So if you had $2 million invested, and I don't have time to get into all this today, but mutual funds, in my opinion, are the simplest way for most people to accumulate wealth over the long times. All this is in the book, and that's really mutual funds invested in high quality stocks. From a historical perspective, that's performed very, very well. It cycles up and down, not every year's a great year. But good quality mutual funds have averaged over 10% a year. One that I've owned since high school has averaged 12% a year since it was started in 1934. So what if you had an investment, in making the math simple, let's say it made 9% interest, earnings, dividends, whatever, the growth rate, the earnings was 9%. So on $2 million, this is a math question, how much would that be in earnings if you made 9% on $2 million? $180,000. So what if you only withdrew 4% and you left the other 5% in? Then you would be reinvesting. For a minute, we're ignoring taxes and all that. Then at the end of the year, it would actually be worth $2.1 million because I left a portion of it in. I drew out $80,000. Today's world, $80,000's a decent income. So you could, a lot of people could certainly live on $80,000 a year. And then if you reinvested a portion, why am I using that illustration? Why would you reinvest some of it and not spend all $180,000? Make more money, but why is it kind of a necessity in this illustration to make more money as we go forward? Interest rates?
You're replacing what you spend.
Say that again?
You're replacing what you spend.
Right. What do prices of goods and services tend to do over the long haul? They fluctuate, but usually they fluctuate in what direction? Up. What do we call that? Inflation. Prices rise. And we're seeing that in a massive way since COVID in the last few years. We've had really robust inflation coming back in the last few years. So if you invest a portion of it back in, then the principal amount is growing, therefore your income can grow. So if you had 2.1 million, I'm going to need my math expert again here. So if you had 2.1 million after the first year, then how much could you take out if you were drawing 4% the following year on 2.1 million? 84,000. Because now you're getting the 80,000 off the 2 million, but I reinvested 100,000, so 4% of that 100,000 is so the only way to get rising income to keep pace with inflation over the long haul is to have a rising principal amount. Okay? Enough on all this stuff. Two other things why people like to save money. As we get old, a lot of times we think about helping others, doing something for the grandkids. When I die, I want to leave something behind. Okay? The other thing that it does, in my opinion, alleviates a lot of stress. Just having your financial house in order. I had a gentleman in the room one day who was a family counselor. He said that their statistics indicate that perhaps the number one reason, when you go back to the root cause of divorces, it goes back to financial stress in the family. And I'm sure some of you have seen some level of financial stress in one way or another in your families. So this is why, however you want to define it with these different things, That's kind of why we're doing this. It's not just to have a bunch of money. It's certainly, when I was young, and it's still this way today, I didn't associate wealth as that little paper boy with stuff. It wasn't big houses, it wasn't clothes, it wasn't even vacations. For me, it was just choice. It was freedom that at some point in the future, I would be able to decide to do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, without being shackled to a job. All right? Let's go on to the next one, ma'am. All right, here's one of my former ball players I coached, learning a little bit. All righty, go ahead. So, let's get into the last step. What, why, how do you do it? Assuming that we're not talking about you inherited or win the lottery, there is only one formula for wealth accumulation. There is no other way to do it. It's that simple. And that's why I didn't know what the name of the book was going to be at the very end, and I added the word simplified. Okay? Extremely simple. I didn't name it Financial Freedom Easy because it's not easy. It's simple, but there's a lot of steps, a lot of discipline that goes into that process over the years. So, earn, save, invest, repeat. If you're looking at your book, those are the icons right at the bottom of the book above my name. Earn, save, invest, repeat. In this formula, I'm not talking about earnings on your money. Earn means your job, your vocation. So if I can encourage you one thing, and that's what you're here at Caldwell Tech doing, no doubt, is to try to enhance your vocation skills in some capacity. It begins with you doing well at whatever your vocation is. So I would encourage you, be a good employee if you're working for someone. Be worthy of a raise. Be worthy of a promotion. Be the one that's going to be the next supervisor, the next plant manager, whatever. It may also mean for you to get where you want to be with your wealth accumulation goals that you may have to work some overtime. It may even mean you have to get a little side hustle job doing something you enjoy, I hope. So do as well as you can at the earn step. And all three of these, the first three, are of equal importance, in my opinion. The save step is as simple as whatever you're making from your vocation, you can't spend it all. If you consume it all, then you're not going to make any progress in this. You're just going to live paycheck to paycheck. My rule of thumb, how many of you are under 21 still? Okay. All right, 21. All right, so the next examples I'm going to give you, I use that. But if you save young and you start that process, I use the number of 10%. If every paycheck that you get, you save 10% of it, I think you'll do just fine. You will be able to accumulate that $2 million, in my opinion, or whatever number you want to use going forward based on how much your job is and how much you're saving. But 10%, my opinion, is a good kind of baseline. Hopefully you can do 20%, but that's kind of depends on your personal circumstances. The invest piece means that you can't just save 10% and stick it in a checking account earning 0.25% a year. You have to invest it well, you have to invest it wisely, and that piece there is one everybody always wants to know, well, where do I go, how do I, and unfortunately, that's the piece that takes some work. That's the piece that, it's not crazy difficult. I think you can make it really simple how to do it, but you need to gain some knowledge. 401k accounts, your IRAs, Roths, what a mutual fund is. Some of those basic things. It's out there on the internet. You could do it on your own. You can get financial advisors. But in some capacity, I would encourage you to, ramp up knowledge on that investment piece.
Is that explained in your book? Are those options?
Yes. Yeah. Let me just tell you briefly what's in that book, since all of you have it. The first 4 chapters, and the preface and the introduction, is basically my concepts about all these things, kind of a lot of the stuff that we've talked about here. Stuff like buy what you need, not what you want, be your mantra. Starting with chapter 5, it gets into nitty-gritty details. Chapter 5 is credit and debit cards. So if you have a problem with credit cards, or you're not sure if you want one or how they work, I go through step by step my views on credit cards. Have a chapter on how to buy insurance wisely. Have a chapter on renting versus owning a home, and then details on home mortgages, variable rate mortgages, fixed rate mortgages, etc. Chapter on mutual funds, explaining what they are, how they work, and ETFs, which is very similar to a mutual fund. Another chapter on retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, Roth, what the differences are, the rules, the benefits. What I tell young people is to start with chapter 21, kind of a goofy number to start with, but that chapter is nothing more than examples of compound earnings, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But so yes, to answer your question, you know, chapter on stocks, chapter on bonds. So everything I talk about here in some fashion is in the book. I think the book is very beneficial. I didn't write the book with any big vision in mind. When COVID hit, I was just kind of sitting at home and I just started writing. I'd never written a book before, and people were telling me it's helping them. So, you know, I said, you know what, maybe I'll go do some speaking. And so people have taken the time to read it, told me it's good stuff. It's written very plain. I've had a lot of people that I knew, friends, stuff, say, oh, I was expecting to be boring or just confusing, a bunch of financial gibberish. And they say it actually was kind of an enjoyable read and very understandable. Yeah. All right, and then you repeat those steps for a long time, year after year after year. All righty? Let's go on to the next one, Ms. Garrison. So let's make sure on one thing before we go to the next slides. I'm going to give you some examples of how this process could work out. Can anybody explain the definition, real simple terms, about 3 or 4 words, of compound earnings or compound interest? We've all heard that term, compound interest. Anybody know what it means?
I learned it in math class, but I can't remember.
Okay.
It's like adds to the previous one.
Exactly. It means to earn on your earnings, to earn interest on your interest, to earn interest next year on the interest that you earned this year. Simple concept, but man, does it get exponential as you go forward year after year. So here's an example. Let's assume that you earn 10% on some investment, and you started with $1,000. After 1 year, 10% means you earned $100. So starting the second year, you now have $1,100. So if you earn 10% again, you would earn 10% on the 100 from the first year as well as on the 1,000. So you earn 110 in year 2, 121 in year 3. That's what compounding is to mean, to earn interest next year on the interest that I made last year, or on the earnings. Okay? Let's go on to the next one, Ms. Garrison. So there's 3 mathematical components of compound earnings. It's the same thing as the front of the book, but kind of a different focus. That earn, save, invest, repeat. The 3 mathematical components are embedded in those 4 steps. So if you have $0 today, I want that $2 million that old man talked about at Caldwell Tech that day. So what do you have to do to make that happen? And this is just math. Whether we're talking about oak trees, bunny rabbits, bad habits, or dollars, it grows at exactly the same pace mathematically. So I've got 0 to begin with. What do I have to do? What's step 1 in the process? Earn. Okay? This means you have to have a job that you earn and save is coupled together for, we will call that your contribution. You have to put some money in for this to start. So I put in some money, I don't have $2 million. What are the other steps? You have to invest it, meaning you have to earn. That money has to grow for you. So your rate of earnings. So mathematically, the contribution, the rate of earnings or the rate of growth, and then what's number 3? Repeat it means time, the years, the compounding, year after year after year. So it's how much you put in, the rate of return you receive, and how long you do it. All right, I got a question for you. Go ahead to the next one, please. So there they are. Amount invested, rate of earnings, time in years. All right, Ms. Garrison, the next one. So let's assume that you've got a job or you just got out of Caldwell Tech. Do you think that it's feasible that you could save $7 a day? In other words, money that comes your way that you don't spend it, $7 a day on average. Yeah. Anybody think that's just too much? Speak now. So everybody's in agreement, $7 is doable? Okay. You young people, I got you right there. All right. Next slide, please. So here's the example. By the time I was about 12 or 13, that little paper boy who I found out that money can make money for you, But when I was about in middle school, I was doing compound earnings tables longhand with a pencil and paper and calculator. Okay, if I put in $2 a day and I earn 6%, I do, okay, that won't, okay, but if I do $4 a day, okay, well, when will I have $1 million? Okay, wow. Okay, so if I earn 9% and I do $6, then man, I can have $3 million. And my mind was just going. You know, I was still a kid. I was still lazy. I still, you know, these were just kind of fantasies. But when I kind of got to be your age, I hit the frickin' ground running. Okay, I knew what I wanted. I knew what it took to get there. And I didn't know if I would, but I knew that I was going to give it my best shot to make it happen. Okay, it can be done. Okay, it can happen. I'm telling you, it can be done. I did it. So here's an example. You save $7 a day, that's $2,555 a year. I ask you if you were 21 or not. So this illustration assumes that you go from age 21 to 65. So if you're a little bit older, say, okay, yeah, it doesn't mean you can't do something here, but maybe you'll have to do $8 a day or $15 a day or whatever, all right? So that means by age 65, you would have saved your contribution from that mathematical formula, $114,750 is what you put in. And we're assuming here the rate of earnings, again, step 2 in the formula, that you earn 4% year after year after year, compounded exactly 4%. That 114 grows to 320. So the time piece, the third step, you know, we're talking 45 years in this illustration. And you can back it up depending on your age and just, you know, say, okay, if 10 years later, if I'm 31 instead of 21, then I can, you know, back it up this number of years and look at a different line. So let me stop right here and just kind of absorb that. As I look at that, I kind of look at it and go, it doesn't seem like a big deal. I mean, you know, I put in $114,000. I waited 45 years, and it's 320. I mean, 320 is not life-changing money in today's world. That's not like, oh, I'm rich, I can just walk away and just live off that money forever. Everybody kind of agree with that? All right. So here's where it gets interesting. What do you think the 7% column is going to say?
Almost double.
Double it. So maybe 640? Thumbs up or down? Is it going to be more or less than 640? Maybe up, maybe more. Anybody think it'll be less than 640? What do you think it'll be? What's your guess? If it's not 640, what do you think it'll be?
Oh, God, I mean,
And this is really tough to look at stuff like this.
higher, but
Okay,
I think it's more than the compound.
go ahead, next. You're right, not a bad guess. 779. Okay, so here's what I want to illustrate for you, just to kind of understand this whole concept of, you know, in other words, it's easy for me to stand up here and say this, and then day to day for you to say, no, I don't want to go over and buy that latte. You know, I don't want this. I don't want, you know, spend that extra $4. Why not enjoy it today? I get that. So you didn't put in any more money. You still only put in 114, same number of years, but all you did differently is maybe you were a little more proactive about how you invested the money. Maybe instead of just taking the simple route, just sticking it over here, you invested a little better. That's a big difference to me. To say, I didn't do anything more. All I did was invested a little bit better, and it more than doubled the money. All right, what about 10%? What's that going to be? From 779, okay, what about going from here? What do you, say that again? $1 million. All right, here's where I was really good. And by the way, I was no great student. I was a 2.5 GPA student all the way through high school. Flunked calculus in college, would have flunked it again if I didn't pass the final. So my success in this stuff was not because, oh, he was special, he was really smart. No, not at all. But where my brain was good was stuff like this. So here's the logic to this. 4% to 7 is a 3% increase. 7 to 10 is a 3% increase. When we went up 3% here, the value went up about 2.5 times over. So logically, when we go from 7 to 10, the value from here is going to go up about how much? 2.5 times over. So is it going to be $1 million or more? $1 More. So what do you think it's going to be, ballpark? You can figure it out. 2 million, exactly. Let's see that. 2,016,000. It went up about 2.5 times over. But it gets exponential when the money is working for you. And that's what really turned me on as a kid. And I started playing with, gosh, if I earn 10% instead of 2%, man, this is extraordinary. So what about the 12% column? What's that going to be? First of all, is it going to go up 2.5 times over? You're saying no. Why not? It's less than 3%. If it went from 10 to 13, it would go up 2.5 times over. But we only went up 2%, not 3. So we know it's not going to be 5 million then, right? It's not going up 2.5 times. So what might it be? It just maybe 3 million, a little more, 4 million. There you go. 3.8 million. Okay, so this illustrates, this is kind of the guts, if you will, not the nitty-gritty about how you live your life and all the decisions that you make there about which insurance you buy and how you use credit cards and do you really need new shoes and all that kind of stuff. But this is the guts of the mathematical side of how this process will work. Now, what's the easy way to do better in this whole thing? Well, what's that?
Diversify.
Good, that's part and parcel of it, but it's just do a little better on every piece of it. So the three pieces are all equally important. How much you put in, the rate of earnings, and the time. So one mistake most people make it, is they don't get started when they're young. You know, when I've talked to high school classes, usually the teacher in the back of the room will go, kids, I want to tell you, I wish I would have, I'm mocking the school teacher here. I would have heard this when I was your age, because I wish I would. And I'm thinking, you know what? You did hear it. You just weren't listening. None of us did, you know. We were young. So the better you can do on the contribution, be as good as you can be at your job. So instead of putting in $7 a day, what if you put in $14 a day? So if I double the contribution, what does it do to these numbers? Doubles it. Yeah, you put in twice as much, you get twice as much out. If you bought a latte for $3.50 and only invested $3.50 a day, then you cut all these in half. I always say if you get the latte for half and spend half of it, well, I hope it tasted good because it cost you $1.9 million in this example. Okay? So the more you can do on the contribution, the better you'll do at this process. The better the rate of return you get, the better you'll do at this process. We just looked at that. And the longer you do it, the better you'll do. So if you're a little short on one, if you're not 21 anymore, then maybe you'll say, you know what? Maybe 2 million is not the right number for me, but I do want to do something. And so maybe I'll have a little different focus. Maybe I have a better job, can put in a little bit more. Maybe I'll make sure I'm investing as well as I can.
Some jobs match your contributions too.
Yes. She mentioned that some employers match your contributions. So let's go on to the next slide and get into that a little bit. So those are the three pieces. Go ahead, ma'am. So wrapping that together, here's just a simple path to getting all this done. Have a job, consistently work. So this doesn't go as well as you go, oh, I got a little bit ahead, so I'm just going to, take a month off and do nothing, but I still have rent to pay and I still have everything to do. So that's the earn piece. Save at least 10% of your wages starting now. That's the save piece. Hopefully you can do more. Invest what you save in a retirement account. Again, this is my opinion based on history and results. In stocks, Roth IRA, 401k, invest it. Then, I think I actually say it here, always take full advantage of an employer matching contribution. What she was saying, if your employer offers you a 401k plan or some other type of plan, a simple IRA, what that means is up to a certain level, you put in $1, they put in $1. So if you put in $2,000, they put in $2,000 and you actually have $4,000 invested. So there's nothing.
Your name on it, not cash it.
What's that?
It's like having a check with your name on it and not cash it.
Right. There's nothing that's going to be any simpler and easier, safer way to make money than take advantage of an employer matching contribution. So do that if you have. Encourage your family members to do that. Some of you may have parents, or siblings or children that work at some place, and I got too many bills, I can't do that 401k stuff, I'm not doing that. Say, man, at least understand if they have a match. And usually the matches are just like 3% or maybe at most 5% typically, meaning if they do 3%, if you're making $50,000, you put in 3% would be $1,500, they'll match it for $1,500. So if you have any loved ones in that situation, encourage them to at least put enough in to take advantage of the match, okay? Then the last one is do steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 year after year after year. Repeat the process. The details, the nitty-gritty details on how to make it happen, again, that's the complexity of it. This is the simple aspect. Living it out day to day is not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. All right. Nathan?
Perfect. Great timing, because there's a class that's coming in at 1 o'clock. But was this not simple? I mean, it really, when I first heard his spiel, if you will, about the book and about these principles that he's telling us, it really just made sense. And that's the first time probably that I paid attention. I won't say that I heard,
Okay.
but I paid attention. To
She heard me last spring.
Yeah, to what was being said. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's
Yeah.
thank Mr. Reid here for coming.
I have one other thing. Roll forward. If you got your phones, get your phones out real quick. I want to, yeah, another one. Yeah. I have an Instagram account. I was encouraged to do that. I will not blow up your Instagram if you follow it. I usually am good to do about 1 post a month. But the reason why I really encourage people I speak to follow me on Instagram, you've got the book. You can DM me if you have a question. Okay, so if you get into this, there's something in the book that you don't quite understand. If you want just an opinion, a thought, something, I'll be more than happy to respond to you. And the easiest way to remember it is just if you're following me on Instagram, you know how to DM me. Everybody knows what a DM is, right? Y'all knew it long before I did. I know that, okay? So if I can ever help any of you, reach out, please.
And he means that. And he's got a wealth of knowledge and has, taught his children, how many kids, 4?
3.
3. Taught his children these processes.
She was a principal for my oldest son back in the day, a few years back, yeah.
But anyway, thank you so much for